We like to think of spring as a time of hope, a fresh start, especially here in Norfolk County, 2 hours southwest of Toronto. Farms here produce $500 million worth of fruit and vegetables. It's called Ontario's Garden. But this season, anger is growing like weeds in the garden. At issue, how to best protect the health of thousands of migrant farm workers essential to the local economy.
Yeah, and I said, we're not going to do that. That's ridiculous. No, we need
It's pitted farmers like Peter Van Berlo against the county's public health officials.
Are the health officers, are they making your job easier or harder?
No, harder.
He's not alone. Farmers' anger has spilled onto the streets here, protesting against what they say are some of the strictest COVID regulations anywhere in Canada.
For your safety, suitable face coverings must be worn at all times.
When workers arrive, they travel maximum 3 at a time, meaning multiple trips at the farmer's expense.
So this is where the men hang out, right?
And they quarantine 3 per bunkhouse, no matter how big the bunkhouse. So farmers need hotel rooms to quarantine all their workers. At 14 days, the costs of rooms and meals quickly adds up.
Some common sense could say, hey, that really doesn't make sense. Let's do it this way. And yet we're not allowed. We're dictated, this is how you're going to do it, whether it makes sense or not.
The food being on the floor is a huge issue for them.
Leanne Arnell has been hired by some farmers to check on the lockdown workers at the hotels.
Where they can't even get outside and have fresh air.
And what do you think of those regulations?
I think they're inhumane. I think they're horrible.
Many workers feel the quarantine measures are excessive, given they're tested 3 times before they can work.
It's unjust and harsh treatments that we have to go through. You know, for we provide, essential services, for Canada. We're here to work, and, our jobs means a lot to us.
I'm going to meet a farmer who has operations in Norfolk and neighboring Elgin County. 1 farm, 2 different sets of regulations, and Norfolk's are far stricter.
There is a level of frustration when no one can seem to explain to us how somehow or other Norfolk has to have a whole series of different regulations than the rest of the country.
The stakes are high.
Scotland has been linked to 217 cases.
Last season, Norfolk had the biggest single outbreak on a farm in Ontario. 1 man died there.
The responsibility lies on the federal government, which makes the rules, particularly during quarantine. I'm not defending these actions by the public health officer, but I would say on the whole, he's one of the better ones.
Norfolk's mayor says she wishes the county's medical officer, Dr. Shankar Nezarathai, would consult before imposing regulations.
The decisions are made entirely in a silo with zero input from either myself as the chair or collectively from the members of the Board of Health.
Do you support these regulations?
I do not.
We asked Dr. Nezarathai for an interview to explain the science behind his regulations, but he wouldn't speak with us. In an email, his office said the regulations were necessary to help protect the workers, adding there have already been some 30 outbreaks in Norfolk County this season alone, including 1 on Peter Van Berlo's farm. Van Berlo says 1 worker tested positive while in quarantine, then tested negative days later. He says declaring it an outbreak is overblown.
I'm not saying this COVID isn't real. I'm not saying any of that. It's our biggest concern. We're more concerned than anybody else. But is it true it's an outbreak? Hell no.
So far this season, Norfolk has had 51 COVID cases, far less than any other farm-heavy counties in Ontario. But each time an outbreak is declared, the arrival of new workers is paused, causing labor shortages.
And then if the folks here in Canada want access to crops that require a lot of labor, where will we get those from? Well, there's always Central and South America. There's the Far East, there's China. Is that where we want our food coming from?
You don't think the price of food is going to go through the roof because of all these, and I hate to say ridiculous rules that don't make any sense. We could have done this in a lot better, productive way and still be safe.
But you see that as the downstream effect, that there would be the possibility of an increase in the price of food?
Absolutely is. It's not a possibility. It's going through the roof.
80 migrant farm workers are now drafting an Ontario human rights complaint against Norfolk's medical officer of health.
Farm workers have been coming here for 55 years. This is the first time in history where they've actually stood up and had a voice and used their voice, where they've actually said, we will not take this anymore.
For his part, Dr. Nesarathai is resigning at the end of the month. With no successor in place, his regulations will stand for now, as will the debate over whether his regulations were based on facts or fear. Mark Kelley, CBC News, Norfolk County.